This is Free Talk Live, and we're here live with you, just like we are every night. Seems like at some point I get tired of saying that, but I don't, because we are here to talk about liberty, and there is not much that I would rather talk about other than your rights and what your government sometimes does to protect them, more often takes them away. And I'm Chris. I'll be your host tonight. And in studio we have...
I'm Ian.
And Rich Paul.
And we are looking forward to an entertaining show tonight. What makes it most entertaining for us is when you take part. And you can reach us at 855-450-FREE. That's our toll-free number. That's 855-450-3733. Or you can hit us up on Discord. Discord is a seriously cool app that allows you to interact with us, interact with other callers in many of the chat rooms, or you can join one of the call-in lines there and talk to us. You will sound just like you're here in the studio, which is pretty amazing, we think. But the other thing that I find is pretty interesting is all the different tactics that different states are taking regarding legalization or decriminalization or whatever they're going to do with marijuana.
Yeah, we had a guy in our Discord chat the other day, I think Footmatic. He lives in Arizona, and he was just bragging about how great it was to be in the medical cannabis program there in Arizona, because apparently the amount of taxation that they've placed on the pot plant there is very, very low compared to some of the other states like California.
Right. And they're all over the board.
We're talking $75 ounces.
Wow.
And for listeners that don't know, back in...
Or people who haven't smoked weed in an awfully long time like myself.
20 years ago, you'd have paid $400 for an ounce, like what they're selling for $75 now down in Arizona. And from what I understand, you're still paying quite a bit more in California than that. I've heard that it's, a few hundred or a couple $100 at least in California, but I don't have the exact numbers on that.
Yeah, I'm not going to reveal my sources at all, my son. But what he tells me...
Is he out in Cali?
He's in California,
okay.
So this is my son's life. He spends his summers in New Hampshire and in Maine and lives at the beach, and then he finds places to get jobs to snowboard all winter long. So we're curious as to how long he can maintain this, but hey, in the meantime, 500 inches of snow is not too bad if you're a snowboarder. But I was asking him about this because a lot of the stories that I'm hearing are about how taxation has really almost decimated the white market, the legal market for marijuana. And he's like, yeah, we don't buy that. I mean, why would you?
Meaning he doesn't buy it legally.
No, why would you? With the prices, because he's like, it's all taxes. I know that.
Yeah.
Because I'm your son. But he's like, it's ridiculous, it's double price. I mean, it's no difference in...
So it's double the price in the legal market in California than the black market.
I think it's going to vary product to product, but it's significantly more. It's significant enough that my son, who's not making bad money doing what he's doing, would rather shop around and rather buy off the black market.
See, I'm paying about $1.25 per ounce black market here. And that's, not bad at all. In 2009, I was selling an ounce of weed for $400.
That's a huge difference.
Sometimes like $3.40 if I got a really good deal.
And
I've
it's
been
the same
watching
quality,
it
is
go
what
down.
you're saying. What you had sold for $400 an ounce, what that you are able to buy now for $125 is roughly the same, right? Like,
yeah,
if not
yeah.
better.
I mean, this is bomb headies, and I was. Mostly I was in the middies business back then because...
You can't even get that now.
No. And I used to sell middies at the same $1.25 an ounce that I'm paying for headies now. So
For you straight folks listening with these confused looks on your face, I feel your pain. Because we don't know what the hell you guys are talking about. That's
middies is a lower grade... smokable marijuana with seeds.
Okay.
So consomelia as opposed to sinsomelia, which is without seeds.
How'd you get your Spanish lesson tonight?
Comprendo un poco español solamente, deseo aprender más, pero no tengo tiempo.
Good, actually.
That's like the one thing I can say.
Okay.
I only speak a little bit of Spanish. I wish I spoke more, but
me too. Yeah,
I want to learn more, but
too.
I don't have time.
It's a good skill.
Yep.
But
that's interesting. But that's the market at play too. So what we have now, with so many states opening up the quote white market, you have lots of producers, and I've read a number of articles that talk about how much weed is coming out of Washington State. It finds its way to the East Coast, particularly states that are still decriminalized. So you are literally getting the same thing. But, you know, I've read Oregon has a glut. They have more marijuana than the whole state of Oregon could possibly smoke.
But they're not legally allowed to sell it outside of Oregon, right?
Of course not.
No.
Because of the federal government.
Maine seems to have a glut, too. There's a lot of it coming out of Maine.
Is that right?
Right,
Yeah.
but this is what you get. And in all of this, in the midst of all this, in the midst of this vibrant marketplace where we have, you know, not only THC and things that get you high, but you also have a lot of interest in CBD, and not just CBD that's derived from hemp. You have all these interests, and the market is finding solutions, and government's just sitting there in the middle, in the way.
Right.
And we end
Big
up
time in California.
Exactly. And one of the problems that's going on in California, and this comes to us from Marijuana Business Daily.
That's a thing now.
It is a thing. And they do look at these things. California cannabis licensing backlog could spur collapse of supply chain. Hundreds of businesses, in quotations. It indicates that this story has been updated to include some comments from the California Department of Food and Agriculture, which sounds like another department we could probably do without.
Yeah.
California Senate panel on Wednesday advanced a bill dubbed a, quote, Band-Aid by one sponsor in a last-minute bid to prevent thousands of marijuana companies from being temporarily forced out of the legal market and causing chaos. I apologize. This is the news aggregator I use sometimes gives me these little blurbs, and then it puts 3 dots, and it makes me click on them and wait.
Well, that's convenient.
This is even better. Now I actually have the whole story. But the move is likely to be in vain, at least...
Right after that pop-up.
Exactly. At least in the short term. Temporary licenses on which the entire legal market operated through 2018 have already begun to expire, while licensees continue to wait.
Hold on. So they gave out temporary licenses.
Yes.
And have not yet even issued whatever the full-on real license is going to be?
No. And I, you know, if anybody out there has watched the documentary Murder Mountain, which is about the California industry, talking about growing and things like that, it's been really clear that this whole thing has been in turmoil. They delegate certain things to counties. Certain things are delegated here. If you want to be a grower, you have to get permits from the state in some cases, and then get some licenses from the locals. Yeah. And somehow they're supposed to keep all this stuff straight. They're not keeping it straight.
Well, I remember there was a story about California's, one of the F-ups that they've had there was that apparently somebody in one, because the government's got all these stupid, ridiculous requirements that they force upon the suppliers and the wholesalers and like every, you know, step along the supply chain, basically. And one of those things is they have to apparently test the marijuana for all kinds of pesticides and things like that. And so somebody was falsifying reports at a testing lab, and they somehow found that out. And so apparently, like, tons of cannabis became unsellable after they found this out, and they had to essentially issue a recall, which of course they didn't have to do,
right? Because
it's probably fine. People have been buying this plant in the black market for decades,
right?
And nobody ever worried about testing it for, you know, pesticides. But no, it's a legal market. We got to undo this. We got to pull it back. I mean, it cost, I don't know how many millions of dollars for these businesses.
And it's California, so they will expect that your marijuana be the equivalent of something you buy at Whole Foods. And that's some of the silliness that's going on in California. 855-450-FREE, free as in freedom. Free Talk Live, we want to hear from you. This is Free Talk Live. 855-450-FREE is our toll-free number. That's 855-450-3733. You can also hit us up on Discord. We got all kinds of ways you can hit us up. You can also watch us on Twitch at twitch.lrn.fm. You can follow our studio cams, and there's a chat room in there too. Very cool. Discord if you want to call in through your computer and sound like you're right here in the studio. But one thing I want to tell you about is Bitcoin.com. Bitcoin.com is your premier source for everything Bitcoin related. Bitcoin.com can help you choose a Bitcoin wallet, buy Bitcoin, and show you where you can spend your Bitcoin. You can also read the latest news or engage with the community in the Bitcoin forum. Learn more about that at Bitcoin.com. And Ian, there's some more people, I guess, that can hear us.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that till the next hour.
Till the next hour, we have to wait a whole nother hour.
Yeah.
This may be affiliate related.
That's right. New radio stations. I just can't say more than that right now.
You can't say more.
They're not
than
both
that.
On right now.
So we're gonna wait another 20 some odd minutes, 40 some odd minutes.
Yep.
Okay. But what we have been talking about, such a tease. You know, I love to hear about new affiliates. This is the new opportunities for people to hear the ideas of liberty.
One in your home state, as a matter of fact. I will say that much.
Well, that is intriguing. But people don't get the ideas of liberty. You don't have radio shows, particularly in talk radio, that really discuss it.
Nope, not in syndicated talk radio. There's some libertarian shows around the country, like a local guy at a local market who's pretty libertarian. Like those guys exist.
They do, but not nationally syndicated, and that's where we're a little bit different. And these are the discussions we want to have with people. 855-450-FREE, and we've been talking about how California's cannabis licensing program is pretty much imploding, which is not a big shock.
But it's not good. I mean, it's not. It's good that California's program's imploding, but unfortunately, businesses are being taken along with it. They're being basically put under by this.
So I guess that was a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I look at these as hopefully learning experiences that maybe for voters who have put all their faith in the state. You know, this is another example of you trusting your government to do the right thing and to make things the way you want them to be. And guess what? It doesn't happen.
Well, they screwed it up.
Government failed.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, the voters, they don't know enough about these things, right? Like all they knew was, hey, legal weed. Vote yes or no.
Exactly.
And the same thing's true in most places where the average person isn't going to sit down and read whatever the legalization bill that just passed the New Hampshire State House with however many pages it is. I haven't looked at it yet, and I'm relatively, politically active and connected.
I'll wager you will. I'll wager you'll skim it, or you're going to talk to somebody you trust to give you the lowdown on what's in it.
Only because of curiosity, because I'm that interested in it. But the average person isn't going to. They just want to go to a store and buy some weed.
They do. And if they can't get it at their store, if it's too expensive to buy from the state, then they're going to turn to where they've been able to get it for the last 50, 100 years, just off the black market. And they're going to be fine with that, too.
Now, what happens in California? Say I'm just Joe Schmo smoker. I'm not running a dispensary or anything. If I buy my weed on the black market, can I then be arrested for having that weed?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't have an immediate answer to that.
I mean, it would depend on whatever the different state rules are, but I suspect the answer hopefully is no, unless they require that you keep the weed at all times in its original packaging, because otherwise it's just weed in a baggie or wherever it is in a
and
container.
Even if they require the original packaging, if you keep the package and you put new weed in it, they really can't tell. Well, this isn't the same weed that came in that package.
This isn't sour diesel.
You filed the serial number off these buds.
Right. Yeah. So I would be shocked if they required, because I know that's true in some states of like cookies, of the edibles. They do want you to keep them in their original packaging, and from what I understand, in some states. But I suspect that's not the case with the flowers because of the reason that you've pointed out.
Yeah, people can. I'm looking at, of course, the first thing I pull up is a lawyer. under California Health and Safety Code, still prohibits selling, giving away, importing into the state, or transporting for sale any amount of marijuana or concentrated cannabis, hashish, without a state license, and may require local licenses too.
Yeah, they're still going to put you in jail over it, and I suspect it's still a felony, which, while I'd like to see that being decriminalized, the state wants you to take them seriously. They want you, as the business person, to obey them. They want you to not have, light consequences for going outside of the system.
Okay, selling without a license it's California misdemeanor.
Really? They lowered it to a misdemeanor?
Yep, misdemeanor.
Right. Penalties
for sale and transport of marijuana are up to 6 months in county jail and a fine of up to $500.
That's decriminalization, and I support that level of decriminalization. I would love to see it decriminalized all the way to the point of no penalties whatsoever for anything, selling, growing, transporting.
I just wish law books did not have the word marijuana in them.
That's another good solution. Yeah,
it's just quit involving it at all and let people do their thing. But again, you have states going to extremes. In California, when I jokingly say they want your marijuana to be like you bought it at Whole Foods. That's what they do. I mean, you
see here. I say don't regulate weed like alcohol. Regulate weed like onions. But in California, they do regulate the onions. So it's
right.
There's nothing you can really say except get out of California. Why are you still there?
And that's a great point. I'm going to hop back in here. Temporary licenses, we talked about this before.
So what you had said was the businesses that had received temporary licenses to sell, those are about to expire, and the state hasn't yet kicked out the full-on license.
Yep, they've already begun to expire while licensees continue to wait for full annual permits. Quote, without passage of this bill, there will be dire consequences, such as the imminent market collapse of hundreds of businesses, unquote. Tara Carver, the executive director of the Humboldt County Growers Alliance.
Because you couldn't just say to people, hey, we effed this up. Tell you what, if you've got a temporary permit, it's now good for the next 5 years.
We're just going to honor it until we get around to figuring out the paperwork.
Or we're just going to stop enforcing these stupid laws. Just stop.
Quit being so pragmatic, Rich. That's just not the way government works. The measure, Senate Bill 67, would give more leeway to the 3 state agencies. Let me repeat that.
3 state
give more
agencies. I got you. I got it for you there, bro.
3 state agencies.
3 state agencies.
How many?
3.
Count them. 3. 3 completely distinct state agencies, all regulating.
Right, and you know how hard it is for these bureaucrats to communicate with one another. And can you imagine how difficult this bureaucracy is?
When there's 3 state agencies.
Exactly, and things are going to slip through Did the forms get over to ABC?
Right.
No, we haven't gotten back from DEF.
3 nightmares in one.
I need it all in triplicate. 855-450-FREE. If you'd like to take part in the discussion, please give us a call. This is Free Talk Live.
Bitcoin.com is delighted to announce their latest partnership with the gift card specialists at eGifter. With many of the world's leading brands on their roster, it is now easier than ever to get the gift cards of your favorite brands with Bitcoin Cash. To get started, just follow these simple steps. Visit giftcards.bitcoin.com, pick the gift card you want, follow the instructions on your screen, and make your payment using your Bitcoin Cash wallet. Sit tight and your gift card will be delivered to you as soon as it's ready. That's giftcards.bitcoin.com.
This is Free Talk Live. 855-450-FREE is our toll-free number, and we would love to hear from you. We have been talking about some craziness going on in California. I know that comes as a big shock to many people out there. In this case, it has to do with how California has pursued legalization of marijuana, and they have really taken the whole tax the heck out of it and regulate the heck out of it, taking it to heart, and it's turning into a big disaster. When I say
times
we,
three.
Surprise.
Times three.
And this is a great example of what not to do for other state governments that are looking at how to regulate, if they're going to regulate cannabis, which they shouldn't, but they all will.
Right.
Don't do what California did.
Yeah, everybody has looked at this as this is the golden cow. I mean, the golden calf. This is all the money we could ever want. All we have to do is, we're going to go back and we're going to make it legal, but we're going to tax it. And what they have done is, and we were just reading a story from Marijuana Business Daily talking about the 3 state agencies, which really derailed us because we just couldn't
were you
get
really
past this.
thinking about a golden calf there, or did you want to say the goose that lays the golden egg? Was that the metaphor you were looking for?
Do not expect me to ever make sense throughout an entire night. So I was just searching.
Oh, okay. We're serving mixed metaphors tonight.
Thank you.
Is that what we're doing?
Exactly.
Okay.
But feel free to call me out on them. I'll provide you with plenty more material throughout tonight's show.
Groovy.
But they are. California, when we're reading this story, we're hearing about, there is a new bill coming out, Senate Bill 67, which is designed to give more leeway to, quote, the 3 state agencies responsible for licensing marijuana companies, unquote. So it's just insanity. The 3 state agencies, the California Department of Food and Agriculture, or CDFA, the Bureau of Cannabis Control, BCC.
A brand new bureaucracy.
You got that right. And the Department of Public Health, DPH, have failed to move quickly enough to process the backlog of provisional or annual license applications. Moreover,
and now they all get to point at each other and say, it's his fault.
Exactly. Moreover, the temporary licenses can no longer be renewed or extended. Evidently, there's something in the ink, something in the paper that reminds.
Well, we said it can't, so therefore,
I
now we
don't
need
know
to pass a whole new law.
Did Bob say that? Bob said that.
That's all his
Bob
fault.
said.
Bureaucrats love to pass the buck, too.
They
so
do.
It's a perfect opportunity for each one of these 3 bureaucracies to be like, well, it's not our fault. Those guys over there are the ones causing the problem.
Exactly.
Well, it sounds like it must be the legislature causing the problem.
Well, yes.
At the root cause.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a result, some of the companies operating with temporary licenses have watched their permits expire. Looking ahead, companies with only temporary permits will technically be banned from doing business once their temporary permits are no longer valid.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So they will, of course, they will, put these ridiculous rules into place. And then they're going to make it difficult to even change these rules. They have to go straight up to the state house instead of just allowing people some leeway. Instead of saying, you know what, here, we'll send out a letter to everybody that's got one of these permits.
Right.
And say, you're good. Don't worry. Keep doing business.
Exactly. And that's all they would have to do, but they won't. The problem scope is large. Most legal cannabis companies in the state hold licenses that are set to expire in the coming months. Quote, in our office, we call this a good old-fashioned hot mess, unquote. Senator Mike McGuire, the lead sponsor of Senate Bill 67, told the state's Business, Professions, and Economic Development Committee, yet another committee that probably doesn't need to exist, which then approved his bill on a 8-0 bipartisan vote. Quote, this is a Band-Aid to the big challenge, but it buys us breathing room for the big fix, McGuire said, referring to the huge licensing backlog. The
big fix is so simple. Shut up and go home.
Yeah.
Just
leave these people alone.
Right. And if you have created a environment where people's livelihoods, and that's what we're really talking about. We're talking about people that work in this industry, a legal industry. This came about, I guess, by referendum in California originally. And they really screwed up decrim. It was really bad, and I will tout once more.
How do they screw up decrim? I mean, how do you screw that one up? You just reduce penalties. That's all decrim is.
Let me rephrase that. Decrim was a reduction in penalties. What they really screwed up in California was medical.
Did they?
Yeah. So,
because it always seemed relatively easy to procure a medical card in California. Like,
you're looking at one tiny aspect of it. And I'm going to plug a Netflix documentary. It's called Murder Mountain. I highly recommend it, but it not only talks about a lot of violence that the war on drugs has brought about, but it also lays out all the challenges that California has faced as they've tried to make their way from the black market to the white market. Where they really screwed up in medical was not coming up with good legislation to support it. So I know...
You meaning like regulations? Because it was in 1996. I mean, one thing they got right with medical was being first. In 1996, California passed Proposition 215.
Right.
The voters did, which allowed for medical cannabis, and they were the first by far.
But because the people of California trusted the government to do it, the government came in and sort of semi-defined sort of everything as far as medical marijuana goes. So it was unclear. You know, originally the idea was it was supposed to be 10 plants for personal use and, you know, and things like that. And there was some limited way that people could come into the industry and offer, you know, more. But none of it was cleared out. And I remember in that documentary is like, you know, it only took us about a year or two before some players came into the marketplace and said, well, our interpretation of a 10-plant limit on grow operations is really 1,000. Which is good for us and it's good for the market. But when they found people in violation of those, then they came down and they shut them down. And it's like
they interpreted 10 to mean 1,000?
People in the market, some people in the marketplace did, and some people, and then the police think
the
something.
cracked down on them?
Right. The police think something completely different. Nobody is clearly defining what it is. And this is the problem when you try to interject yourself into people's lives and clearly define what you're supposed to do.
But Chris, it's dangerous. We need to protect the children. We have to have regulations.
Do we? Yeah,
Couldn't
I know.
the children just be free?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's dangerous.
Why don't we protect the children from tyranny?
Yeah. So I've had this discussion lately because it seems like I keep involving my conversations with people who want to discuss children and what about the kids and stuff like that. You know, we just sometimes didn't allow our son to do things that we felt he wasn't ready for. You know,
even if it was legal.
Even if it was legal,
wow.
Believe it or not. You know,
Can you do that?
I don't remember ever putting like a bottle of Jack Daniels and, you know, a carton of Marlboros in his stocking when he was 5 years old, for example.
It's because he was bad that year.
Yeah, he was.
Otherwise, you would.
You gave him coal, didn't you?
He got coal that year. But that's the idea that there are still parents that do parent, and we need to encourage, you know, teach people by example. You don't need the big arm of the state to come crushing you down. That's not going to be the only way this works. Even with a, quote, urgency clause, unquote, attached to SB 67, the soonest it could be signed into law by Governor Gavin Newsom is at least another 2 months, McGuire said.
Sorry for all you businesses that, you know, you might go out of business in that time.
Yeah. Quote, best case scenario, make it through all policy committees and off the floor of the Senate and the Assembly in the next 60 to 90 days, unquote, McGuire said when asked how soon the bill could get to Newsom's desk. That means there will likely be thousands of companies with temporary licenses forced to halt operations temporarily, causing not only industry consternation, but a loss of income for growers and manufacturers.
Sorry, employees. Yeah, we just can't pay you because we can't sell the weed right now, so you're going to have to go home for a few months until these government bureaucrats figure this crap out.
It could also trigger product shortages for retailers. We'll tell you more when we get back. Free Talk Light, 855-450-FREE. This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-3733. That's 855-450-FREE. And we've been discussing California's attempts at legalization and how the whole thing seems to be imploding due to bureaucracy. They've created 3 separate agencies that all have...
They created one, but there are 3 that are involved.
Oh, that's
3
right.
agencies?
Yeah, they actually did. 2 of these probably already existed: the California Department of Food and Agriculture, Bureau of Cannabis Control, which is probably the new one, and Department of Public Health. But they all have some skin in their mind in the idea in how legalization is to work. So when you have a change, then you've got to notify and hope that all 3 agencies understand what the change is and how it's going to change, and they're all going to act the same way. The reality is that California's legal cannabis businesses that went through and got the required temporary permits, and legalization goes back to the 1st of 2018. So it hasn't been in there too long. When they began legal operations, then they said, okay, everybody who's going to do this, you got to, pass all our muster, and then we'll issue you a temporary license.
Pass the mustard?
Pass the mustard.
Muster.
Muster, M-U-S-T-E-R.
Groovy. That's a musty word.
It is, isn't it? We don't hear it much anymore, but I like to use words like muster. The thing was, they were thinking that, we'll be able to figure this out in a year, and pretty much a year has gone by, and they still haven't figured out how it works. The sad fact is that they are now
This whole thing's sad.
Yeah, it is. They are now forced to come up with Senate Bill 67, which is called euphemistically the Band-Aid bill.
Right, it's not going to fix it. It's just going to extend something, right? Maybe...
They're hoping that this will buy them some time, and we don't have a lot of details of what it is they're going to do. What we do know is that roughly 10,000 temporary business licenses will expire this year. He noted, and he being Mr. McGuire, who sits on this committee, noted that only so far 4 provisional licenses and 52 annual permits have been issued. Lindsay Robinson, the executive director of the California Cannabis Industry Association, said about 6,200 businesses possess temporary licenses that could, quote, expire in April, unquote, despite having already submitted annual applications. Quote, many of these soon-to-expire licenses belong to cultivators, the essential starting point of the cannabis supply chain, unquote, Robinson told the committee. Quote, should these businesses lapse, the upstream ramifications for the entire cannabis industry could be severe, unquote. But because the bill may not make it all the way through the legislative process before April, it means 6,200 operations out of 10,000 may face at least some short-term shutdown. That's not may have some issues with state paperwork. They're going to end up getting shut down.
Yep.
And
if they open up during that time frame, men with guns will show up and force them to stay closed.
Right. And if you think that Ian is exaggerating when he says men with guns will show up, again, the Netflix documentary Murder Mountain will show you under legalization, marijuana being raided by men with guns and on legal farms.
Wow.
Yeah. It doesn't end. Carver.
I really wish people would just shoot back when that happens. I mean,
yeah. Yeah. I don't.
It's reached the point that it's ludicrous. I mean, George Washington would be stacking bodies today.
If he weren't busy with the whole whiskey rebellion thing.
Well, there's that.
There is that little
A
detail.
young George Washington. I was a fan of his early work before he sold out.
No, but your point is well taken. We have, as a people, not as a government, Americans fought for much less than what's going on now. They took up arms against their governments.
Yeah. I mean, imagine if the British government had outlawed tea.
Right.
Instead of just taxing it.
Putting a couple % on your tea.
They would have whacked that king.
They would have.
Well, violence isn't going to solve this this problem. I mean, as fantastic as that sounds, I used to fantasize about that same idea like a decade ago on this show, and since then I realized that if you use violence against the state, they're going to end up crushing you, and they will then make you look like a psychopath because it's crazy to go up against the state.
It is, and that's the narrative they like to push. At some point, I think a lot of revolutions have started with that assumption that it's us against this big unstoppable state. The reality is there are a whole lot more people, free people that aren't motivated yet, but they may become so, and it may be in different areas, it may be in different industries. Well, all sorts of things.
The last time I did the math, if you add up all of the American soldiers and all of American law enforcement, this is active duty, not reserve, you get 1.5 million people total, soldiers plus law enforcement. The population of the United States is over 300 million. So what that gives you is 200 citizens or victims or whatever you want to call them, 200 regular old people for every police and military. Now, if you imagine even a man with a fully automatic rifle trying to control 200 of his countrymen, and you see that he's got a problem on his hands.
Yeah, I understand. I understand your point completely, Ian. I absolutely agree with you that violence is rarely the answer, but at some point, people are going to get pushed into a corner, and when they get pushed into corners, they tend to react.
And sometimes police do understand it when you speak to them in the language which they understand. And an example of this is this elderly couple that got murdered down in Texas.
Not even that elderly.
They were 59, I guess. Anyway, older couple, they got murdered down in Texas. As a result of their shooting back at the police who killed them, they lost their lives, but I think it was in Austin, the Austin Fire Police Department announced that it would no longer be doing no-knock raids.
Yep.
And the reason is, they say it's, I'm sure because they feel bad about killing that old couple. It's because they're cowards and they got shot coming through the door, and now they don't want to go through the door anymore. So I like the idea of them not going through the door.
I do too. And that particular case, it was the police serving a no-knock raid based strictly on the word of a confidential informant who it turns out was lying at every level, or that the police officer that filled out the application for the warrant was lying at every level. This stuff has all come out, and it's all backed up, and you're going to have a federal civil rights trial. None of that brings back a couple that was quietly living in their home for something like 20 years.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, they had to go do this.
Well, now that they're not allowed to do no-knock raids, does that mean they're going to just launch in grenades instead? I mean, what does that mean?
I don't even know. This is I can't remember the.
Generally, it would mean. I mean, my understanding is that it meant that they would knock on raids and take the risk that maybe people will flush something.
Well, yeah, which is the only purpose behind a no-knock raid. The idea behind the no-knock raid and is simply to keep people from destroying evidence against themselves. That is the justification that is used, or that it is so dangerous and there was such a high likelihood of violence that we have to go in there this way.
Yeah, we can't just wait around until we go to the grocery store.
There's such a high likelihood of violence. We have to go in guns blazing and make damn sure there's some violence.
Exactly, and it's not like they passed a law. They did not pass a law saying no-knock raids are now illegal. What they said was, we're changing our policy, which means when you've got the next chief of police, the next sheriff, whoever it happens to be in Austin, then he can just say, well, we're going back to the old way because I like to bust some heads. So that is, really what this comes down to. And, Rich, your point's well taken. I just looked at the number. It's 320 million people in the United States.
Yep.
That's a lot of us, and it's not many of them.
We can fight back and tear them limb from limb if enough of us want to.
in the meantime, I want to help educate people, and I want to share the ideas of why we should talk to each other so we can avoid this sort of thing. But if that doesn't work, hey, there's always the American Revolution to use as a...
You love Bitcoin. It's the future, right? Well, no, not if everyone stops using it. I mean, think about it. How many places in your town take Bitcoin? One? None? Let's be real. If this Bitcoin thing is ever going to happen, it's going to need your help. The good news is, the guys at AnyPay have your back. We built a website called helpmetakebitcoin.com, and it's a place you can send any business, and they'll be set up to take Bitcoin in 5 minutes. helpmetakebitcoin.com.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live, hour number 2, and we want you to join in our conversation. We're open phones. There aren't many radio shows where you can call in and change the subject, which is really cool. We'll talk about what you want to talk about, and in the meantime, we'll be talking about things that we find interesting and things that may impact your life. The we in studios, myself, Chris.
I'm Ian.
Rich Ball.
And we've been talking about what a disaster California's attempt at legalization has been. We found out that there are somewhere around 6,200 temporary permits that just can't continue operating of cannabis businesses. Evidently, this is written in some sort of ink that you cannot pick up the phone and say, hey, you know that application you got with us? It's going to take us a couple months before we get caught up on our backlog. Mm-hmm. So just keep doing as you're doing. Nope, that doesn't work for California.
No, the law must be obeyed. It is immutable.
We have no choice. I'd do it. I'd say keep operating, but this piece of paper,
right?
I can't defy that.
Well, you wouldn't want people to dismiss the law. I mean, you wouldn't want them to look at the law as something that is malleable, something that is changeable at the whim of a human being. I mean, it's the ironclad will of God.
I like. I'm all for, and there are some laws that I like. You know, I like the one that says no government shall infringe upon my right to bear arms. I mean, that's a law. That's in the United States. It's the supreme law of our land, the Constitution.
Yet they infringe on it all over the place.
They do. I like the law that says that I have freedom of speech and that I have freedom of religion, and you cannot infringe upon that. I like that law. But it doesn't do any good if your government likes to infringe upon it. If they have no regard for their own law, why should you? And case in point, the state of Wyoming. And I love this idea called nullification, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, and we're going to tell you what that is. But, headline from the 10th Amendment Center, a great organization, signed by the governor, Wyoming law authorizes a bear hunt despite federal court ruling. This is brought to us as an article by Mike Meharry, a great guy. Last week, Wyoming Governor Mark Gordon signed a bill into law that sets a stage to authorize a grizzly bear hunt despite federal court rulings prohibiting it.
Excellent.
In 2017, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service delisted grizzly bears as threatened species under the Federal Endangered Species Act. In order to manage the growing bear population, the Wyoming Game and Fish Commission scheduled a limited grizzly bear hunt for August 2018, but U.S. District Court Judge Dana Christensen issued a ruling that restored the species' quote, threatened status, unquote, under the Endangered Species Act, therefore nixing the hunt. I'm going to have
Are you threatening me?
A little, I'm going to have a little Google challenge. I wonder if either of you guys could tell me where U.S. District Court Judge Dana Christensen is. She obviously knows everything about the grizzly bear population in Wyoming, so I'm going to say she's in
California.
Is she?
Looks like New York City, and it's a man. It's a male Dana, according to this.
Oh,
Whoops.
wow.
I hate when I do that.
Oh, wait, no, correction. He was born in New York City. Looks like he's in Montana.
He's in Montana. Okay. Yeah. So at least he's sort of in the right area. But
and we don't get to go New York City.
Get a rope.
But again, now you have a federal judge a state away issuing rulings on grizzly bears.
Okay, I'm unclear. Maybe I missed something here. You said that some federal bureaucracy removed the grizzly from the endangered species list.
Correct.
And this judge was like, no, put it back?
Yes, that's exactly right, Ian. The Wyoming Game and Fish Commission scheduled a limited hunt, but U.S. District Court Judge Dana Christensen's issued a ruling that restored the species' threatened status. So it's a lower level than being truly endangered.
I see. So it was endangered. They took it off that status, and he said, well, it's threatened, not endangered.
It was on the endangered species list as threatened. They took it off.
So
but
it's back as threatened.
He said, no, I went out there and I counted grizzlies. Evidently, he probably...
So somebody sued on behalf of the grizzlies, apparently, right? And said, we want the grizzly to remain threatened.
I don't know. I think this judge...
Somebody brought it to court, and it wasn't the judge.
No, I think the judge just made an arbitrary ruling because he heard that Wyoming is going to go ahead and do their hunt.
Judges can't make rulings without plaintiffs. There has to be a case.
Oh, that's true. Good point.
Yeah, somebody brought a case.
Senator Wyatt Agar, a Republican of Weiser, along with 11 co-sponsors, introduced Senate Bill 93 on January 16th. Under the new law, the Wyoming Game and Fish Commission, quote, may conduct a grizzly bear hunt and shall issue licenses, which shall provide for the dates, times, and locations of the hunts, unquote, if, quote, the Game and Fish Commission determines that under the laws of the state of Wyoming that a grizzly bear hunt would be beneficial for managing Wyoming's wildlife and for protecting Wyoming's workers and other citizens and tourists of the state, unquote. This sets the stage for the state to notify a federal judge's ruling. A Wyoming
Which is
newspaper,
an interesting situation because if a federal judge has made a ruling and then the state government agents say, well, we're just going to go ahead and have our hunt anyway.
Yeah.
Then does that put them in contempt of court?
No.
I don't think so. I don't think Wyoming cares.
Unless, so it would only be contempt of court if this judge issued a order saying you must not have this hunt. In which case, then it would be contempt of court.
I mean,
perhaps.
Maybe, but what does have this hunt mean? Would that ruling then be binding on the actual hunters? Or on the state to prevent the hunt?
It would be on the bureaucrats for authorizing it, right?
Well, it's not clear. It depends on who sued whom. Yeah. You can't issue random rulings to people who aren't a party to a suit.
Well, right. And would another suit have to be brought if the state government, says we're going to do this? That's a completely separate legal action, right? So wouldn't somebody have to say, you can't do that? This judge said that these are threatened species, so therefore you can't do that.
I've seen a grizzly, and it was threatening, but I don't know if their numbers are threatened.
Apparently Wyoming doesn't care.
Right. Wyoming, and you could
state government there, at least.
You could put that on a bumper sticker. Wyoming, we don't care.
We don't care.
The Senate passed SF 93. This is the bill authorizing additional hunts. By a 27-1 margin, the House approved the measure 52-7. With Governor Gordon's signature, the law went into immediate effect. The law does not require the Wyoming Game and Fish Commission to authorize a hunt, but it does open the door to defy the federal judge. How things play out will depend on how the agency chooses to move forward. I think that's interesting. They're thumbing their nose at U.S. Fish and Wildlife and to the federal courts and saying, you have no standing here. There's nothing in the Constitution that says all grizzly bear hunts shall be approved by a federal court judge.
Right.
That doesn't exist. The idea of nullification has been around for literally centuries. This is discussed in the Magna Carta. Here's what it boils down to. People should not follow unjust rules. They should not follow unjust laws. And
including state governments in this case is the idea.
Yes, and this was in our history most prominently brought about with the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions by Madison and Jefferson, who just said, no, we're not going to enforce your stupid Alien and Sedition Act. That's absurd. That's ridiculous. And we're not going to follow through. 855-450-FREE. We want to hear what you have to say. Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live. Live tonight, like we're live every night, and we want to talk. 855-450-FREE is our toll-free number. That's 855-450-3733.
But we'd rather talk to you, because we can talk to us anytime. I mean, we live here.
Well, that's true. That's true. And you likely have some opinions on this story. We have been discussing the state of Wyoming's decision to just basically thumb their noses at a federal judge who's saying, no, you cannot hunt grizzlies because I, federal judge Dana Christensen, have determined that they should not have been removed from the Endangered Species Act as threatened. I'm going to make them threatened again. I have no idea what that means. Does that mean Dana is going to threaten these grizzlies? Dana is going to go out and hunt them?
In his judge's robe.
Can you
imagine that?
Yeah. I wish they still wore wigs, because that being chased by a grizzly bear just is a perfect picture for me. I love that. But this idea that some judge sitting hundreds of miles away somewhere in Montana, because he's a federal judge, he can say, nope, the grizzly is again threatened because I say it is threatened, therefore no hunts can go on. And Wyoming, most importantly, I come from an agricultural area. Managing wildlife is an important thing that real people do, not that government bureaucracies do. If you see that all your sheep are dying because of wolves, then you're probably going to go out and thin the wolf population a little bit. But that's another story that is popping up in Washington and Idaho and Oregon that they're discussing. In this case, basically, the judge says, nope, these are endangered. The Wyoming Senate passes a bill, Senate Bill 93, which basically says, Wyoming Fish and Wildlife, if you want to schedule hunts, you have the right to do it.
So whether they will or not is another question. Have they?
At this point, they just said that no, they have no plans right now.
I see. Okay.
But
they're
said,
authorized to do so.
Yeah, they're authorized to do so by the state legislature, by extension, the people of Wyoming.
You have to wonder, is the federal government going to try to threaten Wyoming's state government and say, all right, well, if you're going to do this, we're going to go ahead and not pay you? Because there's all kinds of government programs from the federal government where there's these strings that are attached to money that was, of course, originally stolen from the people in Wyoming and people elsewhere in the United States.
Right.
But then once the government steals that from you, they then attach all these strings to it and say, all right, you can have it back, Forest and Wildlife Service, but you got to do X, Y, and Z. Oh, we see you're not doing Z. You're not prohibiting the bear hunt, so therefore we keep the money.
You know that grant application we have that we were going to go in and straighten out couple rivers and fix some bridges for you?
I've never done that, no.
Yeah, that's probably not going to happen now. Yeah, that's the thing they do, and you're right. They are going to start, if there are government grants that go to the Fish and Wildlife Commission in Wyoming, those are going to get pulled. But they may mess with things that are completely unrelated. In other words, you toe the line. The federal government, and this is a little bit of commentary
before you go on, what that means is that the state government has to be willing to take, to understand that that's a likely consequence. The more often that they nullify the federal government, the more the federal government is just going to say no to funding. And that's why, for instance, New Hampshire hasn't yet implemented a helmet bill or a seatbelt bill for adults here in this state, because they've said no to the funding, which means ultimately that the tax money stays with the federal government. That means that the people of New Hampshire are paying federal taxes, and they're not getting the so-called benefits. Now, of course, they're not getting punished with all the regulations either, but they don't get any of that money back. It just stays with the federal government, and they spend it how they want. So, I mean, ultimately, if a state government were to continue doing nullification as a policy, at some point they would have to do something like announce to people to stop paying the federal government, because it will just make it so nothing comes back eventually. It just all goes out.
This idea of nullification, where you, and typically done by states, just say to the federal government, they come in with some mandate, some unfunded mandate that says you have to do this or else. States, the idea of nullification is to say we don't recognize that the Constitution grants you those powers in the first place, or we think it's a bad law and we're just not going to do it. Nullification doesn't need to be just for that. Towns can nullify laws. Anybody can nullify a law if you are going to stand up to whoever your oppressor is and say, no, I'm not going to do that.
What they ought to do is nullify the IRS and basically say no IRS agents are allowed to be in offices in New Hampshire or Wyoming or whichever state it is that's doing nullification, and say, get out of here.
Or ideally, people begin to nullify the IRS themselves. I mean, that's really what it takes, is for people to, what would happen if people just quit paying any taxes? What if businesses said, there's just too much paperwork with all this. We're going to start paying people under the table. Well, we'll take our chances.
There are a lot of people who don't pay taxes, right? Sure. Individuals in the United States, millions of them don't pay taxes, maybe even dozens of millions. I haven't looked at the numbers recently, but it's a lot of them. And then, of course, there are the people who still fill out the forms, but they actually end up getting money back from the federal government, so they don't really pay. So what you want to do is...
they're still paying taxes. They're just getting change back.
Yeah. You've given a no-interest loan to the federal government.
What if
when you get a refund?
How many businesses could convert from employees to contractors? Because that's one way that they can pay their people. Call them something different. You don't call them employees. But, of course, then the problem is then you can't generally tell them when to show up. So that's one of the issues, I guess, between a contractor and an employee, right?
It may be, but I think what we'll see is the federal government gets more and more oppressive. And so many people are up in arms because now it's tax season, and people are expecting these huge refunds because Trump got us a tax cut. And they're finding out that they're not only getting smaller refund checks. In some cases, they're not getting any at all. In some cases, they're owing money because there were so many things changed by a change in the tax code. So, this is the type of thing that sparks people into action. I wish, it's one of those things that when it happens, I wish more people would look at it and say, just take a step back, do a little critical thinking, look at this whole thing and go, does any of this make sense? I can speak for myself only, but the answer is no, it doesn't make sense.
I mean, any little look you take at things shows irrationality. Did you know that they're actually giving foreign aid to China?
To the China?
To the China. So they're borrowing money from China.
Yes.
So that they can turn around and give it back to China as a gift, but then pay interest on it.
Yeah.
Why?
What's your problem, Rich? What part of that doesn't work for you?
If China has the money to lend, maybe they don't need our help.
Maybe.
Maybe they should send us foreign aid.
You would think. And or maybe nobody should send anybody foreign aid.
Right.
And
that would be
should
nice.
Just pay for what they use and what they need. 855-450-FREE is our toll-free number. We would love to hear from you tonight on Free Talk Live, where you can change the subject let us know what you want to talk about.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE. If you would like to talk to us, we'd love to talk to you because we find that interesting. 855-450-FREE, that's 855-450-3733. That's our toll-free number. You can also hit us up on Discord at discord.lrn.fm. Discord's a really cool app. You'll find chat rooms and voice rooms where you can share your thoughts with other listeners and share your thoughts with us. Somebody on the air is usually in the show. In the rooms off and on throughout the evening. If you want to watch us, you can check us out on Twitch at twitch.lrn.fm also. And Ian, you teased us a little earlier in studio today. It's Chris, Ian, and Rich Paul.
You teased it, but yes, we've got two new radio stations one new station, and then one station's been with us for a while that has expanded Free Talk Live as of this Tuesday night. Both of these stations joined us this week for weeknights.
Nice.
So I'll welcome our existing affiliates. So KWAM 990 in Memphis, Tennessee, also heard on 107.9 FM in Memphis. So an AM-FM combo.
Nice.
They used to just air us on Sunday nights. They're now airing us on weeknights, and they're doing late. So they're airing 10 p.m. till 12 in the morning Central Time. So they're what they call in the business delay broadcasting, Free Talk Live. Gotcha. And that's because of the end of one of the few progressive talk shows that were left in the United States, the so-called Norman Goldman show. Don't ask me why he pronounces his name that way, but that's how he supposedly does it. He is out of business. His show did not make it, and so there's a few progressive talk stations that needed content immediately. And we're one of the few shows that can actually air on a progressive talk station because we kind of straddle both worlds to some extent. We've got mostly conservative talk stations that air the show, but that's because most talk stations are conservative talk stations. There aren't very many progressive talk stations in the United States. There's probably a dozen.
Yeah.
I mean, there's literally
Not
hundreds
many out there. Right.
Yeah, there's hundreds of conservative talk stations, maybe a dozen progressive talkers. So we were already on probably close to most of them.
Right.
And so welcome to, again, existing affiliate. They were on Sundays previously, KWAM in Memphis. Now, the new station that we've got coming on board here that also started on Tuesday is KBBR. It's AM 1340 in North Bend, Oregon.
North Bend, that's on the coast.
It is.
Yeah.
That's not where you're from, but you're originally from Oregon.
Yeah. Hey, and you could say, hello to my neighbors. I lived in Oregon with you about 600 miles away.
Yeah. And they're on board for weekdays, of course, still the afternoon out there.
Right.
3 to 5 o'clock. So they're actually airing, I think, an hour from the previous show because we don't start until 4 Pacific. So they're doing 3 to 4. So I think from last night's show, and then an hour of probably today's show as well, would be my guess.
Well, that's great news.
So welcome. And that station is an all progressive talk station.
Nope.
So some of their listeners are going to be a little bit surprised by what they hear here on Free Talk Live. But I think you'll find out that Free Talk Live is so progressive we make Democrats cry.
We do, and we have some regular Democrat callers, some hardcore progressives that love to call us up and offer their point of view.
Yeah, and I like being challenged here, but I'd love to hear you guys' input on this. But I think that the reason why we're so progressive is because we're progressing towards freedom. We really believe in your ownership of your body. We think that you should decide what goes into it and what you do with it. And some people, on the progressive movement kind of agree with that on some things like, marijuana. But, we want to see the end to the entire war on drugs, for instance. Mm-hmm. We want to see an end to all militarism around the entire planet. I mean, I don't want to speak for you guys, but I think you might agree with me on that.
No, I absolutely.
My body, my choice.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's going to be things that you're going to agree with us on. There's going to be some things that you disagree with us on.
Like we just called for the end of taxation, coercive taxation as well.
Right, and you're not going to get a big government without taxation.
And if you don't have taxation, then you don't have an insane military going around the world destroying innocent life.
And those are the kinds of conversations we love to have with progressives. And what I find unique about the show, and keep in mind, I was a fan before I ended up on the show. I was listening all the time. Was it wasn't? There were things I disagreed with as a libertarian.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know about that. And but if I spin around my radio dial, basically what I hear is conservative talk radio. I hear some variation of a Rush show, you know,
Rush wannabes.
Rush Limbaugh, and that's kind of it.
The female Rush. Oh wait, she quit. Laura Ingram's done. She
Laura?
quit radio.
Did she?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, if any of those
There's other
stations
ones.
out there are looking for somebody to fill Laura Ingram's shoes,
Too late.
Call
That
me.
was at the end of the year. They already did that.
Oh,
Yeah.
so there's
We got like maybe one station out of that.
well, hey, it's something. 855-450 free if you'd like to take part. And we've been talking about Wyoming, who has practiced the fine art of nullification. That's basically looking at something that Washington says and say, yeah, we're not going to do that. We're going to go our own way, and if there are effects of that, bring them on. We don't care. What the Wyoming legislature did was basically release some findings that they found as they were researching this whole thing. Quote, the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution guarantees to the states and their people all powers not granted to the federal government elsewhere in the Constitution, and reserves to the states and the people of Wyoming certain powers that they were understood at the time that Wyoming was admitted to statehood in 1890. The guarantee of these powers is a matter of contract between the state and people of Wyoming and the several states comprising the United States at the time of admission, and was agreed upon and adopted by Wyoming and the several states in 1889.
Okay, so what did they just say? They said there's a contract in place between Wyoming and the rest of the states?
What they're saying
is that the Constitution is a contract between the several states, I think.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. And they refer to the 10th Amendment that guarantees in the Constitution to the states and to the people all powers not specifically granted to the federal government.
But now,
that's what the 10th Amendment says.
They're not the original contracting entity. I mean, Wyoming, they said they didn't come in until 1890 there. So are they actually a party to that contract, or is there a specific other authorization for them to join the Union?
If we were to look at this as sort of contract law, then you would say Party A being United States of America versus the state of Wyoming, and the state of Wyoming went through all the steps to achieve statehood and were admitted to the Union.
But I wonder if there must be a document, right?
I know what you're saying.
There's got to be a separate document for that of them joining the Union, right?
I believe there is, like the Articles of Statehood or something like that. It seems to me that I remember something like that existing when states joined the United States.
I don't know what to search for in order to find whatever document that would be.
Articles of Statehood or something like that, but it seems to be, a fait accompli. Once you've gone through all the steps, once you had to have a certain population, your legislature had to vote a certain way. And in the case of the states that joined the Union later, like Wyoming did in 1889, then there were certain provisos that required that you put in things referring to your allegiance and you saying that you would not be party to another civil war, for example. So a lot of the post-Civil War, post-Reconstruction states that were admitted have these really weird things in their constitutions that really talk. It's much more about fealty than if you read the original 13. You know what I mean? Like New Hampshire, which has Article 10. Which is a right of revolution.
Which is kind of nonsense when you think about it, because the basis of the revolution was the Declaration of Independence, which said that the purpose that Humans had inalienable rights, that governments were established to defend those rights, and that whenever any form of government became destructive of those ends, it was the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. I got that out fast enough.
You did. You did well. And those are wise words, and that's what, at one point, most people believe.
It's time to abolish it. Let's do that now.
Yep.
Is there a
Kill
second?
it with fire.
855-450-FREE. We want to hear from you. Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live. 855-450-FREE is our toll-free number, 855-450-3733. If you would like to take part in the show, the kind of show where, regardless of your politics, you can call up and talk about what you like. Of course,
I don't like politics.
You don't like politics. You're in the wrong show.
No, this is not. This is an apolitical show, I think.
We have been discussing some political topics.
Sure, we talk about issues.
Yeah, we have been. But we want to hear from you. What's on your mind and what's important to you? What's important to me is liberty, and I'm very interested in discussing that and how it applies to you. But also, I'm interested in ForkFest 2019, which I'm really going to try to make it to.
ForkFest!
Did you miss ForkFest 2018? Start planning now to
Most
attend.
of you did.
Right? Start planning now to attend
didn't.
ForkFest 2019. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians next summer from June 13th.
Oh, I need to update that. That's this summer. I guess next as in the next coming one, but
Yeah,
it was
there
written
you go.
for 2018.
There we go.
This June.
June 13th to the 18th for ForkFest 2019 at Rogers Campgrounds in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. ForkFest is a fork of another camping party in the woods, and you'll be invited, and you are invited to come along and create whatever experience you'd like others to have.
People are already talking about what they're going to be creating at ForkFest 2019. Jay Noon, one of our co-hosts, he's going to come on, I think, Wednesday nights pretty regularly soon.
Nice.
He's going to be doing what he calls man camp. So he'll be like teaching people how to do manly things,
Things.
operate a chainsaw or whatever. I don't know exactly what he's got on tap.
And these things can happen because ForkFest is decentralized, which means there is no one in charge.
Right. You don't want to go to man camp, you can go to Steven Zeiler and AnyPay. They're going to be kicking off an entire 5-night party, basically. Every night
Nice.
with pounding music and a DJ. He announced that on the air with Free Talk Live this week.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's going to be there's going to be more parties going on, I think, at ForkFest than there are at the Porcupine Freedom Festival that follows it.
Probably.
Quick, somebody party.
Yeah.
So it's up to you to create what happens or simply relax and go camping with other liberty lovers. For more information and to connect with other ForkFesters via the unofficial Telegram chat or at the ForkFest forum, visit forkfest.party. That's forkfest.party.
Right now, they're in the Telegram chat tonight. They've been talking about advertising ForkFest on other radio shows. Cause,
very cool.
Free Talk Live is great and everything, but there's all kinds of other libertarian shows in the world of podcasting, for instance. And
Right.
maybe they're talking about buying Facebook advertising, which is awesome because nobody has to direct anybody here. It's just like somebody wants to buy a Facebook ad, buy a Facebook ad.
Go ahead.
Somebody wants to sponsor the Porcupine Freedom Festival, sponsor the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which we've done. So ForkFest is going to be sponsoring the VIP tent at the Porcupine Freedom Festival this year, which is the festival that follows ForkFest, that ForkFest originally sprouted off from. So this year, everybody that attends the Porcupine Freedom Festival will be getting flyers in their bags advertising next year's ForkFest. So they'll know to show up if they want to do the whole thing. Show up 5 days early, and then you get extra camping and extra fun. And
Show up when the rebels are there.
exactly.
Right.
So yeah, forkfest.party is the website. Is a website.
It is a website, which is very cool. We have been talking about what is going on in Wyoming, where they say we want to hunt some grizzly bears because we have too many grizzly bears.
Can we get back into that in a bit? Because
yeah.
isn't Dave on the line? Is he still there? Yeah, you can just hit the refresh button on that.
Okay, is that what's?
Yeah, if it's not showing the right time, then it's probably, what time is it showing there? I can't read it. 15. Yeah, it's showing the afternoon. So just hit refresh on that. Sorry, we're doing a little on-air tech support here.
Yeah, don't mind us. But basically, yeah, we want to make sure that dump buttons work, and the reason for that is because we are broadcast on close to 200 radio stations.
Dave has been known to get a little excited and say things he's not supposed to on the air, but normally he's pretty good about not doing that.
Well, I'll be ready for him though. But Dave, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey, what's up?
I got blocked from social media.
You did? Which one?
All of them?
From Twitter and Facebook. I got blocked. I got suspended on Twitter and blocked on Facebook because I said the same exact thing on Twitter.
Okay, now wait. Is it something you can say on the radio? We don't want to have to use the dump button on you. So, is it something you can tell? Can you tell us what you said?
Well, I can spell it out, but I was on Twitter and somebody said, "Oh, they wanted to seem like song."
Oh, okay. Well,
we want
to be careful that you don't spell words you're not supposed to say on the air. So if you can't say the word on the air, just say the F word or the S word. That's all you have to say. Okay, Dave?
Well, it's not a swear word.
Okay. Well, if it's not a swear, then you don't have to spell it out unless you're talking about like body parts and sex. So there's certain words. So if you're in doubt, just go ahead and leave that word out, or just give us the first letter of it.
We're trying to work with you here.
Go ahead.
But yeah, I because some guy on Twitter said, "Oh, he wanted to see my song, whatever," and I told him, the F word that ends with the letter T. And I also I also had announced that also on Facebook, whatever. I was saying, because
you were calling him gay, is what you're saying when you said the F word. Yeah, you were saying he was gay.
Yeah, the F word, it also ends with the letter T. It has the word G-O-T in it. Yeah,
I gotcha.
Okay.
You can actually say that one on the air, just so you know, for future reference. But so you were made uncomfortable. Somebody said something to you on social media about wanting to see your private parts, and you were made uncomfortable by that. So you lashed out. You called him a faggot, and then you got banned. Is that why you got banned? You think?
Yeah, I was on Twitter, and they said, something about I don't know what, because I got suspended on Twitter for using that word, and then when I also said it on Facebook, I can't go on Facebook until March, towards the end of March. So
so they banned you for a whole month on Facebook.
You're in Facebook jail, Dave.
How's it feel?
A lot of people see that as a badge of honor.
Is this the first time this has happened to you?
No. And just so everybody knows, today is my birthday. I am 44 years old.
Wow.
Happy birthday, Dave.
Wow.
Well, at least you have more time to yourself now, to where you can, spend it with you rather than on Facebook and Twitter. This does happen to a lot of people.
Spending time with the NSA and the FBI.
I get tired of keeping notes. I just let them keep notes. So it's much easier that way.
Dave, have you considered moving to some of these alternative platforms out there? A lot of people have been banned. Gab's sort of Nazi, supporting, seems like. I mean, they seem to be really into, letting the Nazis have their thing there.
They may be very accepting of Dave.
I don't use Gab AI. I don't use Gab AI because I had a whole bunch of friends that were on Twitter. I followed a whole bunch of wrestling fans like Becky Lynch and a whole bunch of others.
You followed wrestling fans as opposed to the wrestlers themselves?
That is a fan. When you follow
the
people's
other fans,
then you are a real fan. That's what I'm saying.
Is that what you meant to say? Was that you were following the fans of the wrestlers?
Yeah, on Twitter. Yeah, there was Becky Lynch. She has her own tweet, whatever. And
so
also
she's
there's
not a
Ronda
wrestler.
Rousey.
She's a fan of a wrestler. Okay.
No, she's not a fan. Well, I was following, a whole bunch of wrestling people on Twitter, and I also think that Becky Lynch should be in the main event at WrestleMania, but no, she got.
Wait a minute, is she a wrestler or is she? Wait, is she a fan or is she a wrestler?
She's a wrestler.
Okay, then why are you saying you followed fans of wrestlers?
That was a little
Sounds
confusing.
like you're following wrestlers.
I didn't say I follow fans of wrestlers.
Right.
I said I follow wrestlers on
Maybe
Twitter.
you meant to say wrestlers. You said fans, but it's all right. Everybody makes mistakes.
I didn't say fans. I said wrestlers.
All right. Well, whatever. You can play it back later.
So long and the short of it is you got banned from social media. You got banned on the Facebook platform. You got banned or people blocked you on Twitter.
Suspended on Twitter, and I can't post on Facebook until towards the end of March.
So do you have any plans?
Go outside.
I mean, yeah, there's a whole world out there. What are you going to do with your free time?
I have no idea. I'm still on YouTube, though.
Wait a minute. I thought you deleted your YouTube channel.
I have 3 channels. One of them you can see. It's called My Own Damn Channel.
My Own Damn
Channel. We're checking you out. David,
right,
thank
Dave.
you
Good
so
luck
much
with
for
your
the phone call.
social
It's good to hear from you, as always. 855-450 free.
Sad man.
We're wrapping up our second hour, hour 3 coming up soon. We want to hear from you. Again, 855-450 free is our toll-free number.
LRN.FM now has a Discord. Discord is a free text and voice chat platform, and we now have our own server with a bunch of channels at discord.lrn.fm. You can join other listeners as they chat about various things during our live shows, or anytime, day or night. Discord software is available cross-platform, so you can have it on whatever device you want and take your chats anywhere. Join our Discord at discord.lrn.fm. That's discord.lrn.fm.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live, 855-450 free. If you would like to join in, that's 855-450-3733. In hour number 3 of our show, we've talked about California's disastrous attempts to regulate their legal marijuana industry, which just made no sense whatsoever. But
everything
fortunately,
California does is a disaster.
I know. We have another story which we may or may not get to, but it talks about their taxation and how if they lost maybe, say, 500 to 1,000 of their highest income people, that pretty much flatlines their budget.
Really?
Yeah, it's really
nice.
Exactly what you would expect. In studio today, it's me, Chris.
I'm Ian.
Rich Ball.
And we've been all over the board, like we're always all over the board. We like it that way. But we want to take your calls, too. Jesse calling in from Minnesota. You're on Free Talk Live.
Yes, this is Jesse the Body Ventura, and I want to address that walking trash bag in Freeman there.
Oh, yeah. All right. Let's hear it.
Oh, yeah, don't act like you don't know what this is about, Buster. I was governor of Minnesota. I know the mind control plan. I know about the thermite, you scumbag. Let me ask you a question there, little Ian. How do you feel about making fun of an autistic man, Dave from New York? Many people who call you laugh. Well, you won't be laughing when my fist pounds your face. They call him an autistic butthole. And yes, he's done all kinds of erratic things. But why are you spreading homophobia with that F-A-G word, but we're not allowed to say N-I-G and racism and transphobia on the Liberty Network?
Well, there's no consistency when it comes to the FCC's rules and regulations as far as what you can and can't say. And then again, on top of the FCC, you also have just the idea of upsetting advertisers on radio stations. So it's generally better to be cautious about that kind of thing. But to your question about Dave in New York, he's referring to our last caller, I think pretty obviously here, Dave. In New York, I didn't know he was autistic. I just figured he was, he had some real serious problems beyond that. I mean, it's not just autism when it comes to Dave. He has
very funny.
He didn't get into it because his call didn't last that long, but he constantly repeats himself. So I mean, Dave definitely has some mental issues.
Something.
Well, that's the theme on every
He's got
show
some
that
mental
that
issues,
four-man
don't you
pilot-
know?
Yeah, right. Right.
Oh, you think it's funny? And is that Ron Paul, the neo-Nazi-looking biker skinhead with the shaved head? Let me tell you something there, Mr. Freedom. I was fighting for marijuana rights before you were a smear in your mammy's pap smear, let's just say. So you shut your mouth. Now listen, I'll say what I have to say and then I'll go away for now. But I just want you to know that us real libertarian patriots, we're letting people know the real issues there, bucko. We're letting them know about the anal cameras that the government's been installing into all of our children. Are you going to tell them
Must have
about
missed that story.
Ian?
Okay,
Or I
now
come
what
there
exactly
with
are
the
you
hell-
doing with your time that an anal camera in your child would catch you doing it?
Why don't you ask your mother there, pig boy? They're doing it to all of us, sir. Maybe you're too busy watching Cheech and Chong movies.
I haven't had my anal probe yet, I have to admit.
That you know of.
That you know of.
Well, it can be enjoyable. You can ask Alex Jones. And the last thing I have to say before me and 500 Hell's Angels, fellow Navy SEALs, patriots, and all kinds of other social justice libertarian warriors come and destroy Ian's studio and find him at the next karaoke bar in Keene and bash his face into the bar. Okay, before that happens.
Man, I
I
didn't realize
hate it when that happens.
I didn't realize I'd set
Before
off
that
Jesse
happens-
Ventura. I mean, he's a pretty intimidating
That's
guy.
right. I
Jesse
was
the body.
governed. Have you seen the documents? Have you seen Flat Earth? Have you seen Bigfoot there?
God, I
Ron
hope he's not a
Paul?
flat
I don't
earther.
think so.
Please don't.
Ah.
I mean, I know he's into the conspiracy
yeah.
theories, but I hope he's not. Thank you for the call, Jesse. I appreciate it.
Flat suns don't melt steel beams.
For anybody just listening, I want to let you know that absolutely was not Jesse Ventura, former governor of Minnesota.
I mean, it wasn't a bad shake at an impression.
Nah, I think he did all right. With Jesse,
Oh,
I mean,
he did a great job,
did-
don't
yeah,
you
he did
know?
have the
Sounded
kinda-
just like it came from Minnesota, don't you know?
You throw out a little Minnesota and you spice it up with 10,000 conspiracy theories, and there's your Jesse
Jesse.
Ventura. Yeah. Interesting stuff. I don't even know where to go after
Yeah,
that.
how do you
call.
follow up anal cameras? I mean, that's-
Exactly. I'm not even sure.
We'll just
we're
walk
done.
behind the user.
I haven't heard that particular
that theory?
theory
No,
yet.
that was a new one on me.
I did see something about the hackability of dildo cams today on the web. Apparently,
I didn't even know they had
know they had
cameras
cameras.
for those.
Yes, they have dildos that have cameras at the end of it. So I don't know. I guess you can take a peek and say "at your cervix, madam."
Proof of hymen. Is this like a blockchain thing?
Oh my!
Not on the blockchain, but apparently some of these are very hackable. So people can come in and peek at your cervix while you're masturbating.
Oh my!
Well, no, they cannot do that to me.
Well, yeah, it's probably
yeah.
true.
But
Well, we
that's
don't know
not
what
the.
you're into. We're just gonna have to take your word for it.
No, I'm referring specifically to the hymen. You will not
Gotcha.
find a hymen
Okay.
on
Cervix.
my body, or cervix. I'm cervix free. But this isn't the first
We're
time.
not going to ask you to prove it. Okay, we'll take your word
Take
for it.
my
Yeah.
word
Yeah.
for it. But it's not the first time this.
Nobody got time for that.
It's not the first time that this kind of technology has been hacked, and there have been 2 cases that I know of. There have also been remote control sex toys and things like that you can control over the internet, for example, that have been hacked. There was one case of a company that had one of these devices out there, and they got hit with a class action lawsuit because they had some code in there that allowed them to monitor the response of the woman.
Oh my!
So they were basically recording things like breathing, pulse rate, and things like that, and then using that data to improve their product.
I didn't even know you could take somebody's pulse with a dildo.
Well,
This is the 21st century, Rich.
this is we're going to be amazed by what we see, or shocked as time goes on.
I mean, they have these little
Or
devices
just
that you can.
confused, maybe.
They have these devices you can wear on your wrist that can take your pulse, right? So presumably you'd be able to take it anywhere blood is pumping.
Right. But that was, temperature and respiration.
So wait, was their argument though that, hey, you agree to our terms of service when you open the package, and the terms of service clearly say we can take your pulse and all these other things?
No, they did not disclose that the capability was there at all.
I see.
To
so
anyone, right?
Should have just put it in the TOS.
Yeah, and
no one reads.
Nobody reads those things anyway. Right. Who cares? But in California, because we were talking about California. Californians like to brag that their state is the world's 5th largest economy. They talk as referentially of Silicon Valley companies Apple, Facebook, and Google as the ancient Greeks did of their Olympian gods. Hollywood and universities such as Caltech, Stanford, and Berkeley are cited as permanent proof of intelligent, aesthetic, and technological dominance of West Coast culture. Californians also see their progressive one-party state as a neo-socialist experiment moving for a nation moving hard to the left. But how long will it retain such confidence? This is an article coming to us from the Daily Wire, written by Victor Hansen, who is at the Hoover Institute of Stanford University. And he discusses what might happen if a few very wealthy individuals decided to leave the state of California. And the number he discusses is much smaller than you might think. 855-450-3733 if you would like to opine. This is Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE.
There you go.
Sorry about that. We had our levels off a little bit. That's what you get for having a complete rookie, complete noob in the first chair. So I apologize for that if it was a little loud. My name's Chris, and we're in the studio with Ian and Rich Paul. And we've been all over the board like we are off to do. But one thing I do want to tell you, I want to tell you about a couple of different things. First of all, you can reach us, again, on our toll-free number, 855-450-FREE. You can also hit us up on Discord at discord.lrn.fm. Load a little client, and you will sound, should you like to join the show, like you're right here in the studio with us. You can also watch us because we have studio cams. You can watch us at twitch.lrn.fm. And part of what we do also is we offer our archives. So this show has archives going back to what?
2006.
2006.
There are some that exist earlier than that, but you only can find those on torrents, and they're a little bit harder to find.
Yeah. But a rich history of libertarian and liberty-minded discussions on the regular radio show. But some people don't always have that amount of time to listen to a whole episode, so you can do a couple things. You can listen to the Daily Digest, which are done by our good friend Riley. And you can also check us out on clips.freetalklive.com. Those are short YouTube videos. Yeah. Maybe you hear something that you kind of like the sound of and you want to share with somebody, and they're probably not going to meander through 3 hours of audio or video. These are short little 5-10 minute videos that are great. So
easy to share.
They are. They're easy to share, and they're great content. So check that out at clips.freetalklive.com. But we've got some phones loaded up, and we are going to go to Dave in New Hampshire. Dave, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, folks.
Hey.
How are you?
About the same. Wanted to update you on the free states. Some of the free staters are trying to set up a mesh network in West Manchester.
Yeah,
there's been a lot of talk about the mesh network idea over the last decade or so, and it seems like Patrick, who's I guess an early mover to the New Hampshire Free State Project concept, He seems to be taking it more seriously than anybody else. He had some seminars about it, I think, at the camping festivals last year, and I think they've been having meetings about it. Dave, are you familiar with how far along they are on this? Are they still in the meeting phase, or have they actually rolled out, antennas and actually gotten this mesh network thing set up? Which, for listeners that don't know, as I understand it, a mesh network is a sort of alternative network to the internet, meaning that you've got like Wi-Fi access points in a neighborhood or in a geographic area that all independently connect with one another to create this mesh that can connect to the internet but doesn't have to. So if the internet goes down, the mesh network is still there. Did I describe that correctly?
Yeah, that's pretty close. I mean, usually a mesh network will connect to the internet, but the idea is if the internet goes down, then basically the services that were previously on the internet background would then attach to their nearest mesh networks, and the mesh networks would just take over.
Yeah, if it were wide enough, but we're only talking about West Manchester at this point, right?
Well, the thing is, you take these mesh networks and then you build a mesh of mesh networks, as I understand it. But let's let Dave say what he wants to say about it.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave. And this is Dave Ridley from Ridley Report.
Oh, this is Ridley. Hey, Ridley, what's up?
Hey, Rich. Well, you're right. They did have a meeting a week or two ago. But what was interesting to me was that what they're going to try to do, whether they can pull it off or not, I don't know. But they want to try and make it so that our router gets paid. Like if you set up a router, then a little bit of cryptocurrency goes to you because you have placed the router, and then they want to set a sort of decentralized autonomous, or not a decentralized autonomous, but a smart contract to sort of govern the whole relationship from one router to the next. And I mean, it sounds kind of like a big deal to do in such a small area with a low density, so it's tall order. But if they could do something like that, imagine how useful it would be to have a profit motive for adding your wireless router to a mesh network.
Right.
But where does the money come from, though? Who's funding it?
The money would have to come from users.
Yeah, it could be from users. So
what's the benefit? Why would I want to pay to access a mesh network?
Well, let me give you an example. Let's say it's this neighborhood, and we set up FTL net, and it's right here. Then anybody who could connect to it, instead of paying Comcast or whoever your local cable company is, your $100 a month or your $80 a month, maybe this high-speed internet is shared amongst a whole lot of people.
I see.
So that is the big deal. So mesh networks can provide resiliency, but more importantly, they can provide an alternative to existing services.
So what you're saying is you could sell, essentially, which I'm sure is against the terms of service, but they wouldn't know about it. You could sell access to a Comcast or other Time Warner or whatever Spectrum cable modem connection and give people internet access that they don't have total control over. Or if you wanted
to serve a whole neighborhood, you could run a T3 in and probably not violate the terms of service.
Right, but I really don't need to do that because of a mesh network is configured in a way that it could do it. What if I have 10 subscribers and 5 of them all have home internet access? So each one of those could become a potential route to the internet.
Yeah.
So now I have high availability, resiliency, and a lower cost point. So these are all alternatives.
And some people would say that sounds silly, but most people's internet connections are idle most of the time.
Right.
So if you're torrenting something, what you want is as much bandwidth as you can possibly get for the next 20 minutes. And then you might not need any bandwidth at all for the next couple of hours. So that's your neighbor's chance to torrent something.
It could be, but the idea that the supply could increase to cover those, and I think that's going to be the case in a lot of these examples. The big deal is, can I provide resiliency? Can I not have my crappy Comcast or Fairpoint or whatever internet company you have? When it goes down, can I still have a connection? And,
now, what I want to know about this mesh network thing is, and you may not be the right person to ask, Dave, but just generally, just throwing it out there into to the ether, is how are they connecting the different nodes on this network? Are they using something besides Wi-Fi? Are they using like a microwave connection? Because unless you're right next door to somebody, Wi-Fi isn't going to cut it.
You can use any connection. You can use a wired connection. You can use a Wi-Fi connection. You can use a laser connection. You can use a packet radio connection. Yeah. You can use a telephone connection and a couple of modems.
Packet radio is going to be brutally slow, but yeah,
that's the whole thing.
Well, it is, but if you're in Grafton, it might be the fastest thing you can get.
Right. Dave, thank you so much for the call.
Well, one more thing I should mention. They do have a website set up. It's freestatemesh.net.
Excellent.
All right, cool. Hey, thanks.
Thanks a lot, man.
I hope they can roll this thing out soon.
How about it? Mesh Networks? You have a opinion on these? I think we can see some interesting things in our future.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
This is Free Talk Live, 855 450 free. If you would like to join us, the us in studio tonight is myself, Chris.
I'm Ian.
And Rich Paul.
And as always, we've been all over the board. We've talked about California's disastrous implementation of legalized marijuana. We talked about grizzly bears because that's always fun. We talked about the state of Wyoming basically saying we're going to hunt grizzly bears. I don't care what you say, federal government, judge in this case. And we think that's the right way to manage the bear population and a bunch of other stuff. But I like to get to the phone calls because that's what I find most interesting. We have Robert calling in from Vero Beach, WTTB. Robert, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, I just want to tell you, I'm here in Vero Beach, Florida.
Yep.
I love your show. You
Thanks.
guys are so cool. You're always down to earth. I'm on the medical marijuana. I got a real bad back and everything, and it's really helped me tremendously. I was taking the opioids. I was taking those for like 5 years, and it's the addiction is really hard.
So they finally did it in Florida. I'd heard that they were working on it. I didn't know what the current legal status of medical was in Florida. Are there actually like facilities that are open where you can get medical cannabis now down there?
Oh yeah, we got one right down the road here. It's about a mile and a half from where I live, and it's called True Leaf, and it's a really nice place. The people are real professional. They got a arm guard in there, and it's real clean, and they take your card. They mail you your card. You go see a doctor. It cost me $375, but you get a rebate of $75 when you go. Yeah, but you get a rebate of $75 when you go down there.
Now hold on, just to clarify, the $375 is to see a doctor and get the card?
Yeah, that covers the doctor. It covers the doctor and the card.
And how long does the card last for? Is that just a year?
I think it's a year. I didn't have to check
So
on
then
that.
you got to pay another $375 next year?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
What's the renewal?
I think it might be just after the renewal, maybe.
Interesting. But that's still money that doesn't go to, probably some of it goes to the doctor, right? But it doesn't get you. It doesn't get you $375. Doesn't get you free medicine for a year or anything like that, right?
Oh, that's right. No, it does not.
You don't get your first ounce, right? For
just nothing.
Well, I do the vape, and the vape is good, and it doesn't make you cough or nothing.
What are you doing? Are you vaporizing oil or are you vaporizing the plant matter?
It's the vape, just the oil.
The pen.
Gotcha.
Vape pen.
Yeah,
I love those things.
Do you know what an ounce of medical weed costs in Florida these days?
No, I have never bought any. No.
Okay. What do you charge? What are they charging for the vape oil? What are you paying for that?
The vape oil, about $75 for a canister, but it lasts a long time.
Is that a 500 milliliter or is it 1,000 milliliter?
Oh heck, I'd have to look at
it. It's whatever fits in my vape.
Well, both of them will fit. They tend to have the industry tends to have two different sizes from my observations. Not that we have any of these products here in New Hampshire.
No,
that would be illegal.
That would be fun.
Right, but
quick, somebody panic.
But overall, you found a medicine that works better for you than opiates.
Yeah,
that you like better than opiates, but you still are paying $375, which we've never determined who gets that money. And my guess is it's just the state of Florida.
Well, I think a lot of it goes to the doctor. But question for you: how much extra work did you have to go through to get heroin? I mean, opiates, basically heroin. How much extra work? Like, did you have to get special permission from people to get oxycodone or whatever opiate they were giving you?
Well, you have to show proof of an injury, which my back is really injured bad, and I had to show my MRIs to the physician that I was seeing.
And they have certainly.
And he's like, oh yeah.
Yeah, and
got a really bad back.
So wait, what you're saying is you were getting prescription opioids through the legal marketplace. You weren't buying them on the black market?
Right.
Oh, no. I was perfectly legal.
Okay.
And I just got to the point
where I was trying to make there is it's really interesting that they're scared of an opiate epidemic, so they're going to make sure you get special permission to have marijuana. You have to jump through extra steps.
Right.
But there's no special permission to get the actual opiates.
Well, there's the doctor's recommendation, but it's essentially
right. But you need that for the marijuana as well.
Yeah, you don't need a special card for the opiates.
Opiate.
No, you don't need an opiate user card. You don't lose your gun rights if you take opiates.
Mm-hmm. Right. And those are all important distinctions. Yeah, go ahead.
What I have heard though is that if you do have the medical marijuana card, that you cannot get a permit to carry.
Okay, so let me discuss that a little bit. This really depends state by state. So the law says in the new ATF bat fee form 4773, which is what you fill out when you buy a gun. One of the questions it's always asked, as long as this thing's been around, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. So are you the user of any illegal drugs?
I remember that because I quit using the morning I filled it out, and then I started again that night.
Right. But what they've changed it to, and they changed it within the last couple of years, is to expand on that question 11E, and ask, and it just has a statement down below that says, marijuana is still illegal at the federal level, so even if you are a legal user in your state, this still disqualifies you for doing that. So in a sense, it's exactly the same law. What is different, most people feel, is that if now that we have databases of marijuana users, like this gentleman in Vero Beach, Robert, now there's some database that may hold his information. And if the feds ever decide to start running ATF checks against these databases all around the country, then you could seriously be denied. If you were just fine with being honest about it and say, yes, I used to use it, like this morning, I bought my gun and now I'm a new user this evening. You know what I mean? I understand what you're saying, but this has a lot of people in the Second Amendment camp really freaked out. And they should be freaked out because it's none of their business.
And there's no other medicine on earth that disqualifies you. Right. You can get prescribed opiates, you can get prescribed antipsychotics, you can get prescribed all of the crazy uppers, downers, laughers, and screamers that all the school shooters were on, and you can still buy a gun, but not if you have medical marijuana.
So keep that in mind, Robert. Go ahead.
I always say it's very interesting. A person can get arrested for a marijuana cigarette. Now, what comes from that?
Reefer.
The cop gets paid, the jail gets paid, the lawyer gets paid, the judge gets paid, and then you got to get your probation officer gets paid, and then you get to go to rehab, they get paid.
What you get
is, I'll tell you one thing.
Over a joint.
If they catch me with a joint, I'm not paying anybody. I won't pay fines. I don't pay fines when the government issues fines to me
I've
like
paid
that.
no fines for my felony conviction. I have not paid my public defender for my felony conviction. I've not paid anybody. Sooner or later, they might come scoop me up on this. And I guess if the pigs are listening, they know now. Sweet. So,
Robert, thanks for the call.
Well, now that you're back in Keene, you'll probably go to the Keene Spiritual Retreat, so it won't be so
I
bad.
love that place.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's like my home away from home.
Yep.
We're going to keep going on the phone calls. We've got Mark in Missouri. Mark, you're on Free Talk Live.
Mark in Misery.
Thank you for calling. Thank you for taking the call. Sorry,
Yes, sir.
I'm in the car on the road, so if my connection goes off, I apologize.
All right.
We'll let you know.
Or we won't.
Connection, but no, I kind of was a comment of the mesh component along with California. I actually work in cybersecurity focused on the IoT, and we'll be heading to the RSA Cybersecurity Conference in California next week.
Hold that thought.
Yeah.
We'll come back to you here in a moment.
If you're okay holding, we're okay.
Sure.
We'll be back with him in just a moment, and your thoughts, your calls, and your interests coming up. 855 450 free. This is Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live. 855 450 free. That's 855 450 3733. We are stacked up with callers, but that doesn't mean you might not be able to. You might be able to get through. Who knows? You can give it a try.
I can say you can definitely get through. I see 2 open lines there. Plus, we got the Discord call.
Nice. So you can hit discord.lrn.fm, and you can get through that way too. And I wanted to take just a moment to thank somebody I actually know, Rapture, who is a silver amplifier of Free Talk Live.
Former Keeniac, moved to Manchester.
Absolutely. And amplifier means somebody who is a member of our AMP program, which means they donate their hard-earned money to help us advertise, market, and promote the show, which helps get us on more radio stations like either new or expanded hours or things like that. We announced 2 of them earlier today.
That's right.
One in Oregon, and the other one was an existing station in Memphis.
But now doing weeknights.
Yeah, so that's all very cool, and that is thanks to your dollars and your help in the Amplifier program. You can find out more about the AMP program at amp.freetalklive.com. And we're going to go back to Mark, who is calling us from Missouri and wanted to talk to us about, probably educate us, to be honest, on mesh networks. Mark, are you still there?
I'm here, sir. Yes, thank you. Not necessarily on mesh networks, but more or less just the IoT and the cybersecurity.
Internet of Things.
Internet of Things. Yes.
Okay.
But now there's dozens of other acronyms: industrial IoT, the Internet of Medical Things. So various attachments to it.
Do I really need to have a coffee maker connected to the internet? I mean, does everything have to be connected to the internet?
Dildos do.
I was the mentality. I'm not sure if any of you guys are Simpsons fans.
Simpsons.
But there is an episode. Being from Springfield, I have a soft spot for the
yes,
Simpsons.
but which Springfield?
Missouri.
Okay. Oh, okay, gotcha.
Okay.
All right. So Homer is at a outdoor conference or something, and someone's trying to sell him a barbecue that can flash fry a buffalo in 8 seconds, and he whines because he wants it now, not 8 seconds later. It's not a question of whether or not you need it, because obviously that's not the case. I mean, we functioned as a society long before IoT was even a concept.
Right.
The convenience of the ability. Okay, you send a signal and notifies your coffee maker, your oven, your light to turn, and your front door light to turn on, and
Sure.
with particular amount of brightness, whatever you select. But yeah, these components are, unfortunately, manufacturers, OEMs are more of the mindset of connect first, secure if it's cost effective.
Right. Well, the thing to remember is that the S in IoT is for security.
Meaning it's not there.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's a big issue with these things. And the thing is these things can have no security whatsoever. They can be default. They can have default passwords.
Right, so if somebody accesses your network from the outside, they can turn your things on in the middle of the night or when you're not home.
Well,
or
more to the point, they can, because these things have traditionally been built with such poor security, they can become robots on botnets. They can be used for hack. They can hack your stuff inside. So,
right, meaning your coffee maker is sending spam out of it, and you have no idea. It's sending spam emails, and you have no idea. It's
Probably not spam emails, more like making connections to ports that you think are only accessible from inside your firewall.
Yeah.
But your coffee maker is serving as a Trojan horse.
Yeah.
So somebody connects to your coffee maker and then uses your coffee maker to connect to your computer and start downloading your files.
Right.
This is real stuff. It's not just getting your vibrator hacked. It can get your whole world hacked.
Yeah, and it is very scary. So you're on your way to a conference, an RSA conference. Is that what you were saying? Or
next week, Monday through Friday, is RSA in San Francisco.
Yeah,
cool.
RSA being one of the most secure encryption methodologies created in the 70s. I think made up of the three last names of the engineers who developed it. But it's not only that, like your coffee maker also being able to be compromised to the point that it is mining Bitcoin in the background. And
I doubt that, but it could be mining some sort of S-coin.
You could make it mine something, but the processor power is going to be so weak.
Yeah,
no.
Absolutely.
But as we saw in Monero, what we saw with
these things, you get hundreds of thousands of them actually conducting it. Then any small, very minute amount of processing power and calculations and being done, now you have some heft to your effort.
You'll never find a block with even a fleet of...
No, what you've seen is you've seen Chrome extensions and things like that used as Monero miners.
Right.
Again, it is...
But that's using a
CPU
computer CPU, not your dildo.
Right.
This
but
is
the thing
the CPU in your butt plug is going to be so slow because it only has to do a few things. You know? A little bit of in and out, a little bit of up and down, a little bit of back and forth. You're happy. So that doesn't take much processing power.
But if I get 10 or 15,000 of these things, and this is what they found out with the extensions in
that
Chrome,
would kill you, bro. You can't take that many mechanical butt plugs.
I've already moved on
not
to
at the
Monero.
same time, my brother.
Mark, thank you so much for the call. Have fun at that conference. I'm a geek.
Thank
I
you.
love those types of things. We're going to stay on the phone. Sarah from New Mexico, you're on Free Talk
The moment
Live.
you've all been waiting for. What is it tonight?
Yes, I just want to say that. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just so excited that I got to see our new hawk light in front of that middle school used in action.
So a hawk light is a very advanced crossing light. The ones I've seen look almost like traffic lights for pedestrians.
Oh yeah, I've seen like three red lights like blinking, and so I was on the bus. And
now hold on, these hawk lights are for pedestrians crossing to alert the drivers that there's a pedestrian crossing, because they might not be paying full attention, and so a flashing light is likely to make them notice more than a small child running out in front of them. Is the idea? Is this weight activated, or do they have to press a button? Does the crossing, the pedestrian?
Does it know?
How does the light get triggered? Do you know?
I think the ones that we have here is the ones that you have to press a button.
Okay.
But I was told that the ones in Arizona, it's censored, and it analyzes how many people are standing in the crosswalk also.
Are you
computerized?
Are you planning to move? Because I know you would want to be where they have the safest pedestrian crossings.
Yeah, see, the original hawk lights were actually brought out in Bedrock. And for those, they actually had a hawk that sat there, and there was a little button, and he would peck the button if he saw anybody in the crosswalk and turn the light on. That's how they got their name.
Sarah, thank you so much for your call. Dave in New Mexico. Dave, you're on Free Talk Live.
Dave's not here.
Dave's not here, man.
Dave's not here, man.
Is that a Cheech and Chong reference?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me in. It's me, Dave.
Yeah.
Dave's not here, man.
Dave's not home.
Yeah.
Teledildonics. Oh my! Have you seen that George Takei or a meme?
No, I haven't.
Teledildonics. Oh my!
Missed that one.
My.
And,
okay, so what's on your mind?
Yeah. Well, you got no time, so I'm just doing the fun stuff. I did see a girl on a cam girl with one of those What'd you say? A video?
You can't get too graphic.
Video,
Be careful here. Go ahead.
A camera.
Well, you can say dildo. So a dildo with a camera.
Okay.
So she was broadcasting the feed from the device?
She was definitely broadcasting. She was abroad and she was casting.
See, who finds that interesting?
Was there enough light in there? Like, could you see the cervix? And did it do anything for you? Because that's not, when I think about, gee, look at that girl. I wonder what her cervix looks like.
I want to see parts of her.
I don't even know what the cervixes of the girls I've dated look like.
Well, now suddenly I'm compelled. I'm curious. But the thing is the internal parts, it's got to look like
they all look the same.
It's got to look something like a video of a colonoscopy. I mean, can it be that different?
Yeah.
Well, this thing did have its own light, but to be honest, the camera was mostly on the exterior, which is where it's nicer there anyway. So I don't think I ever did see much internal on that broadcast. But anyway, it did exist. I saw it. It's being used to earn money as we speak.
Well, hey, it is a very pure form of capitalism. People women in this marketplace, they have assets, and there are men that are willing to pay to glimpse those assets, and it doesn't need a lot of government intervention. It doesn't need any government intervention. But sadly, David, we're out of time. Appreciate your call. But we'll be here tomorrow night, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern. We look forward to hearing from you then. This has been Free Talk Live.
It's another edition of the Edgington Post Show coming to you from the North American Bitcoin Conference. It's Mark Edge here for Free Talk Live, and I've got with me here a rep from a video game company. I grabbed him real quick. Introduce yourself, if you would, please.
Yeah, hi, I'm Michael Stiglmeyer. I'm from Planet Digital Partners.
What game products do you have?
Well, licenses? Right now, over the last 18 months, through our existing wrapper, which is Planet Entertainment, we've been able to publish or co-publish a series of games, multiple platforms that are in the marketplace, Bass Pro Fishing, Cabela's The Hunt. We have World War Z, which will drop in April.
Yeah.
And what we've done here...
Those are big names.
They are big games. We have been doing this for a long time. We have a lot of video game industry veterans on the roster. And so we've gravitated toward licenses that we know resonate and that also don't lend themselves to be dated, so that we can sequel or annualize them whatever pattern we choose.
Okay.
And
it's kind of the way the Madden football is done every year.
But in reverse of that, where Madden's done every year, a license like a Bass Pro game, if you have a successful iteration 1, you can put it out and it can have a shelf life or a market life that lasts much longer than a year. And it frees you up from feeling like you have to re-annualize the license.
Okay.
And it allows you to just really focus on putting a great updated version of the game out, however long that takes.
I see.
So that when we do licensed work, that's what we tend to gravitate toward. And we have a pretty long and successful track record, I feel, of doing that. So.
Well, the reason you're sitting here is because I recognize the games, and I'm not
I'm
not really that familiar with all that many games. I think it's great. How did you integrate blockchain in it? I mean, you're here at a blockchain convention.
It's a great question. Obviously, the question we're probably being asked the most right now. We chose to use a security token offering as the investment vehicle. We wanted to be able to go out and raise funds to basically work as an accelerator for independent game studios.
Okay.
And in doing that, there were different routes, and we settled on the STO because we really like the democratization that we see within this marketplace and the ability for people to invest in what they believe. Now, we have a dividend-based token. And so the revenues generated, net revenues generated by our suite of games will be pushed right back into the token, and that will continue in perpetuity as long as we continue to publish games. But in establishing that structure of investment, we really started unpacking blockchain. And what we realized were there were absolute just native applications within gaming software that we can turn over to our studios and our development teams, and we can enhance the gameplay experience. It's really critical that what we're not doing is we're not using blockchain to enable microtransactions. We believe that what gamers really want now, in 2019, is a unique and individual experience in the game that they can share with other people in the community. And blockchain is going to enable us to do that within the game versus just monetizing it and having it go to a transactional base where we'd rather deliver content.
Everybody's mad at EA Games for making their Star Wars game to have micropayments within it. So
Absolutely.
you buy the game, and then you have to buy things within the game, and everybody's mad.
We're the opposite of an institutional publisher. Our core team is made up of a lot of people who spent a lot of time at pretty high levels in some of those large institutional publishers. And the reason that we all gathered and chose to do this and endeavor on this together is because we felt like the time was right, that we could do something that was disruptive, but disruptive in a positive way and kind of gives it back into the gaming community. We definitely see a resurgence in the console market. It's very exciting.
So people are going back to consoles.
Absolutely. Fortnite, changed the game or changed the landscape from where it was moving to mobility.
Okay.
It's shifted back to console now.
Fortnite's console. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, shows what I know.
And Take-Two Interactive had an extremely successful console launch in October with Red Dead Redemption 2,
yes,
which is an absolutely beautiful masterpiece of a game.
Right.
But what it did
and for those that don't know what a console game is, real quick, a console game means they're using one of the systems that exist.
Right. Nintendo right now, which is the Switch.
Yep.
Xbox, which is Xbox One from Microsoft, and Sony's PlayStation 4.
Yep. And those are more specialized. What's the advantage of a console system? Are you able to get it seems like you're able to just do more with it because it's specialized.
Well, the consoles as they're built now operate like high-level PCs, the operating system. Switch is different than either Xbox One or PlayStation 4 because Switch can work tethered to your screen in your house, whether your TV you're running off a monitor, whatever you're running. But it's also mobile; it has its own screen, so it's a hybrid system. Hence the name Switch. Xbox One and PS4 are going to be monitor based or TV based, and really what they've become is entertainment hubs for people. So people run their music, their movies, and everything through their machine.
Right, you can play your DVDs on it.
Absolutely, and obviously all the streaming networks. Everybody is contracted at this point. We have access to everything day one.
Right.
But the hook still for having a gaming system in your house, you want to play video games.
Right. That's indeed, and it makes it easy. They've got the little gizmo, the little handholds, controllers, and that's the easiest way and most fun way to play a video game. It's just that sometimes people want to be out on the road and they want to do a variety of different things.
There's no question. Mobile games, what they've done is, we refer to it as the games that people play at the bus stop, where you have 4 or 5 minutes to kill. You want a very quick, rewarding experience. And obviously the mobile game platform is a very robust market. We can port games over with strategic partners if we choose to make mobile versions and tap into that, but we're truly a console-based company. That's what we manufacture. We make large disk ROM games.
And so the blockchain technology allows you to make the game custom to the individual player in some way?
It does. And without getting, overly technical, it's
tell me about an application. How does it work?
Using keys and having an individual key assigned to every issue of the game that goes out for the users they log in. I'll give you an example of how we're going to put it into one of our properties, which is Bass Pro Fishing.
Okay.
Once I log into my
one
version
of the most awesome names franchises out there.
It is. They're really great partners, and we're very, very fortunate to be working with them. And so in the next iteration of Bass Pro, you'll log into your game, and you'll go to the lake of your choice. Your key's been enabled, and you'll go to the lake of your choice. You'll choose a rod and a lure of your choice. And those hashes will drive an application in your game that allows you to pull out, let's say, a striped fish, a striped bass from your lake.
Okay.
I'll go through a similar process on my copy of my game, and through the choices that I make and my keys, my application that I'll pull out is going to be a spotted bass.
Okay.
You invite me to come fish in your lake. I come to you, I bring my keys and my data with you to your lake, and we have a contract, which could work like a little fishing derby that we have between the two of us.
Yeah.
You beat me in the fishing derby, and then I give you my keys and data. So now when you go out where you pulled striped bass out of your lake, you now have my spotted bass data, and you pull out a bass that has a long tail and alligator teeth.
So
it's endless.
Wow. I can totally see. I mean, like, this can really go deep into lots of different types of games. But I mean, obviously, people are going to want this. It's going to get people together. They're going to be talking to other folks.
That's exactly the point. You nailed it.
You're
That's
going to
what
be
we
gaming
want.
with not just gaming at your house. You're going to be gaming with your friends.
Community and credibility are probably the two most powerful drivers right now in the gaming world.
Okay.
And so enabling people to have that kind of credibility with other gamers to show what they developed, what they have that's unique, what's rare, the expressions that blockchain allows within the game, and the expressions that you and I can share with each other, and what that creates in the community, it's absolutely priceless to us.
So what's it like inside the gaming industry? I mean, people are the other companies now going to be interested in blockchain because you guys did it?
We'll see.
That's how these things go.
We'll see.
I mean,
we expect there to be. We're very uniquely positioned because of the individuals who are at the core of Planet Digital Partners. That we're able to enter the marketplace very quickly, and we have a lot of flexibility. I'm sure that what we're doing will be replicated, and I hope so because I think it's going to make gaming in general better.
And now you said that these were, apparently you guys are issuing tokens for individual games so people can invest in the games they'd like to see?
No, we're issuing the token is off the entire portfolio.
Okay.
So from an investment perspective, we look at it kind of like being able to invest in horses and invest in the jockey, right? You're betting on both.
Okay.
The horses being all the different games that we're going to put into the marketplace. And to be honest with you, we have some of the most decorated people in the history of video games working on this project. We don't know which of the games is going to explode.
No.
And it is difficult to predict, and it becomes subjective media. But what the investment allows you to do is bet on this entire list and bet on the pedigree of the people involved,
and
that we're going to deliver some hits.
How do people find out about this? Where do they go?
Well, you can go to specific to the STO. They can go to our website for the raise, which is www.planetdigital.io, and you get access to all the information on there. The white paper. It'll take you actually to Series 1, who's our platform provider.
PlanetDigital.io.
Hi, I'm Derek J. I don't want a politician to represent me. To me, government is the idea that one group of people can coerce everyone to comply with an edict or face increasing punishments up to and including death. Despite perhaps the most noble of intentions, the best government services are a far cry from what could be provided for by voluntary interactions. Besides, the people who call themselves the government wage wars and put peaceful people in jail for crimes involving no victims. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. You can order your copy of the Director's Cut DVD now at victimlesscrimespree.com.